podcast. I'm Ross Robertson, BigwaterFishing.com. That's us. Bigwater on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. Producer dude will be joining us now, on stuff. And really, I need him because he's got to rope me in. And then I
always. But you know what? You did, and I'm not apologizing for cutting you off. But you did mention where you can find you without me having to say anything. Now, if I can get you to just fix those blinds behind you,
oh my God,
on your own.
I guess if this, it's kind of like your mom. Like if this is our biggest pain is, that I don't have the blinds just right. Normally we get this nice lake view, but we got the wrong light and blah 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 blah. Any of you who's watched our YouTube videos, you've heard me and him bantering. Well, now you're going to hear more because I pretty much. I don't know if I mandated it because I said you got to get more involved. Or
yes, you told me I had to do this, or we weren't going to work together anymore. And I don't know. I don't know which one is actually worse, but
yeah, well, whatever. Well, he's going to try to rope us in, and we probably need to be roped in a little bit because today I've got my longtime friend and definitely an industry professional. Guy's won an awful lot of money fishing and really has been a pioneer of a lot of things. One in particular being pulling spinners, which is what I love to do. Mr. John Gillman from Michigan. So, producer dude, I think it's going to be interesting. He's a little quieter than me, but me and him have a lot of banter. And go figure, I don't know if we do that much on Bigwater Fishing, do we?
No, never.
Yeah,
always straight to business.
Straight to business.
Always. That's my rule.
Just like the blinds, straight
to business. Well, let's go straight to John.
John Gillman, finally, Mr. Technology, we got you on the podcast. Can I be honest? Your wife gave me $100 to put you on here.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, I would love to call you an acquaintance or a fishing guy, but I consider you a friend. I don't know if I should use the F word with you or not, but.
No, you shouldn't, because I don't consider you a friend.
Perfect.
You are just
because we're just
kind of a nuisance is what you are.
Right. Perfect. And because I'm a nuisance, I feel like I need to tell one of my favorite stories of all time. Because again, with your buddies, I don't care what you do for a living. If you work at a mechanic shop or you're a teacher, whatever, you get jokes and little inside things with people within your industry because people don't know what you do. It doesn't matter what you do, right? And one of my favorite ones of all time, and I wasn't even standing 5 feet away to get this, but you were in a tackle shop and a guy comes up to you, and just so you guys at home know, John's very successful in life and the whole fishing industry. There's two separate things there, but a real humble guy. And a lot of people aren't when they've had the success that he's had, so I don't want to blow your ego up too much. But with that, we're going to use it against you right now because you're in a tackle shop and a guy comes up to you. And again, this is before Facebook. This is before all these other things. It's kind of like the same thing early in my career where when people, did things, you had to kind of have a little more merit than you do now. Like every one of the guys we had on the podcast said, anybody with a bullhorn, has a voice now because of the internet. So at any rate, John's in a tackle shop and a guy comes up to him and he's like, just shopping, and he's like, oh, hey, you're John Gillman. And John's like, right? Like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I am. And he goes, what happened? You used to be good. And that have we not used that or said that to you 1,000 times?
At least. It was funny because he was an older gentleman, local guy, good fisherman, local fisherman. And obviously I fished the Saginaw Bay, PWT, FLW, Michigan Walleye Tour, had some good runs, good success. And he I don't think he meant anything bad by it. He just said, gosh, you used to really be good. What happened to you? Because obviously we all have ups and downs, You're going to have a phenomenal year and then maybe another phenomenal year and then a year you're not so phenomenal. And I think I had a pretty good run in 2 or 3 years going. The Linwood Classic, we won that a couple times and, the local tournaments and whatnot. And that was funny. That was absolutely hilarious when he said that to me.
Fishing is, I don't care if you're KVD, fishing is a humbling sport. I mean, you can be on top of the pedestal and knocked right off, just a day later.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It is tough and it can be challenging. As a tournament angler, I've learned a ton. Fishing's my passion. I've always loved fishing my whole life, grew up fishing. So then, you see the guys tournament fishing and you want to do that. The PWT came to Bay City, I think in 98 or 99. And that was the first time I really wow, I want to do this. So I started,
Did you do small tournaments before that?
I didn't. I started actually in the Michigan Walleye Tour in 1998. with Steve Vandemark. He was my tournament partner, and lots of good stories with Steve. And, you know, the fishing community knows Steve as well, and he's had some great success. And so we teamed up and started fishing the Michigan Tour together and had some really good success there. And then back in the day, you had to qualify kind of to get into the PWT. You had to get sponsors. And I think Mark Martin was one that signed off to allow me to get into the PWT. And then that was the beginning of my, I guess, solely professional career where you fish, you know, pro co. And it was fun. My first season was 2002, and I fished the FLW and the East on the PWT and had some good success. And obviously there was a couple events on Saginaw Bay. I finished second in the FLW, fourth in the PWT. And then, you know,
by the way,
start making a name for yourself.
We call you the bridesmaid too. You know that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I've had more seconds than Aaron Martins has had in the BASS Elite Series. Just a ton of seconds, which, you know, again, it's so hard to win and it's so humbling. But what tournament fishing has done for me has just made me a better fisherman, period. And the changes that have come from it, from when I started basically in 2000 until now, it's unbelievable where it's gone. It's really, truly unbelievable.
I mean, technology, you know, like right now, you look at like the bass stuff, like Palaniuk has got the 360 and he got a couple wins, basically credited to that.
Right.
Got live imagery, you know, that's pretty much coming out with everybody.
You know, the Garmin Live Scope this year, I think two of the major Bass Elite events, the victories came due to that technology. I know that Isaac Lakeish kid that fishes the National Walleye Tour did well in the National Walleye Tour in Green Bay with that same technology. And that's a big part of it too. You know, walleye fishing, big water, we always trolled. You know, you trolled. And now it's crazy. People are casting, you know.
A lot of casting going on.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, that's been a huge change from when I started in the PWT. Like one of the first things that I felt in the PWT was I used my bow mount trolling motor. I had a Fortrex at the time, I think it was. I don't even remember what they were called back in 2000.
A Maxim.
Yes, a Maxim. And what I did was I would jam an aspirin bottle underneath, like a Tylenol, plastic Tylenol bottle, in the foot pedal up in the front, because, you know, people didn't have Alteras and Ultrex and all the remotes and everything. And I remember the tournament in Escanaba, and we all ran down towards the Cedar River area, and a lot of guys were trolling in crystal clear water, and I was literally the only one using electric. Literally, that was it.
It really, really was a difference maker.
For sure. I mean, it was incredible because you could just precisely troll. And, you know, like that Beta Knock event that I fished that year, we were fishing in 18 to 20 feet of water, and guys were on both sides of me running kicker motors. And I, you know, I was younger then and new, and I'm like, why would they want that loud motor in this shallow, clear water? And I ran electric, and I finished second in 2003 in the event at Escanaba, and second in 2004 in Escanaba as well, both trolling events, both using electric. And I think from 03 on, for, 10 years maybe, I ran the EM Minn Kota on the back. And then obviously the Tarova and the Altera and all the technology there, and now the Ultrex, you know, people are using those with the remote in your hand, and it's made a huge difference. And, you know, that evolved, and then it evolved into casting. You know, you go to a Beta Knock event, or any of those, a Green Bay event, places like that, and guys are 75% of the field casts now, and they don't troll. And I think now, I can't imagine back then if guys would have casted, like if a guy would have learned and would have been able to do it back then, because you felt like the fish weren't in that clear, shallow water, but they are.
I agree, but I disagree, because there was a guy from like Traverse City, Michigan, and then if you remember back in the old PWTs, Daryl Christensen, and I've listened to even some things about those guys. They tried to make that work. Now maybe things were different, maybe they didn't do it perfect, but
they were using, you know, they used a casting spoon more so than a shiver minnow or a jigging wrap, and maybe that had a difference, maybe not.
But on Erie, the casting thing on Erie still isn't seemingly work, but it's the way that things are just. My point is I think the fish are setting up differently now that it's more advantageous. Like on Saginaw Bay, people kind of know what they're doing now, right, with that.
Yeah.
And they're fishing these rock piles that the gobies are on. Gobies weren't around per se then.
Correct.
There was the way fish schooled. Some of these walleyes on the bigger lakes are almost acting like smallmouth or like largemouth.
Yeah.
Right? Is that fair?
Yeah, and like Saginaw, some of the tournaments here now are actually won. If there's a tournament on Saginaw, and guys can run north to the rock, because the inner bay, like the inner bay at Green Bay is mud. So the inner bay of Green Bay, guys aren't casting, they're trolling. Inner bay of Saginaw Bay, guys aren't casting, they're trolling. Outer bay, Green Bay, they're casting. Outer bay, Saginaw, they're casting. They find that rock, and you're right, they find those rock fish and those goby fish, and they cast to them. But that's been a huge change in walleye fishing for me since my career began, is the casting. And now, obviously, the Garmin technology, and now Humminbird has it coming out here this year. I hope to have it. Lowrance has it. All that live scope and Mega Live and all that. It's almost, again, another huge game changer. And I think people that adapt with it are going to have great success.
It's no different than when you started. I can remember you used a different manufacturer for electronics because of the mapping. Now, if you don't have like Lake Master mapping on certain bodies of water, you are at a supreme disadvantage. So we're not even talking about the high-techy stuff.
Yeah.
We're just talking about, like, you can put Lake Master almost quite literally like on your phone. I mean, you guys are using, on tablets and things like that with,
Yeah, I've always said I fish as much with my Lake Master and my contour as I do depth, and I do other things. Obviously contour, depth, temperature, stain, all those are huge factors. But I think, again, casting has changed that some too. You don't have to worry so much about temp and stain and those things when you can cast.
Yeah. So I don't want to get ahead too fast, but you run a successful business, and we'll get to that later and how you kind of brought that back. But taking time away, I don't care what you do for a living. Like, you've been able to kind of intermingle the two a little bit. But no matter what you do, like I said, if you're a doctor, lawyer, you work at a Ford dealership or whatever it is, teacher, you can only dedicate so much time because of work or family, right? And you've put a lot of time into the tournament fishing thing. You've put a lot of time into the fishing thing. And do you think, me and you, we talk a lot, and it's kind of like, for me, it's the same thing. You joked with me the other day, and you said, my doctor, my lawyer, my dentist, you read all these things. Like, all of them fish. Like, that's how I became friends with them or whatever. I wouldn't have you as a friend if you didn't fish. I don't even like you that much, but you fish and you're decent enough. You're not that good. You used to be good. But, so, I mean, the camaraderie with fishing cannot be overlooked. I mean, is that,
No.
Would you have,
No,
I mean, you've made a bunch of money fishing, but would you still have done all those tournaments, taken all that time? Because the money you've won fishing, while exceptional, if you'd have put that time back into your business, you probably would be ahead of things tenfold.
Oh, yeah, like tenfold. Because if you want to make $1 million, start with 2. That's how you make $1 million fishing. We know that. Yeah, it's funny. All my friends, like I told you, and like you said, we talk all the time. All my friendships, all my relationships, they're all they're fishy guys. My doctor, is a fisherman. He's a tournament walleye guy. My dentist friend, who you've known for 20 years as well, is a fisherman. My lawyer was my very first co-angler in my very first event on Lake Erie, in my very first PWT event. We've been friends for 20 years. And he's my lawyer, and I look to him for legal advice and things. So the relationships I built have been huge. It's awesome because you're very similar creatures. We are all sick with the disease of fishing. That you just can't take that away. So you bond that way. And then, being able to travel and fish tournaments and meet people, I then became able to, incorporate into my business. I've been in the screen printing and embroidery business for 30 years, and I'm very fortunate. This last year was extremely challenging for a lot of people, including me. But I was fortunate. We do a lot in the fishing industry, and the fishing industry business in 2020 was amazing. So I'm very fortunate to have that opportunity, and I do work really hard at it all the time. As you know, we talk a lot, and So I've been blessed and fortunate with that. So,
You talk about camaraderie. As much as we bust each other's balls, we probably wouldn't give it up for anything, right? But I even think about like some of the guys you traveled with. I traveled with you even when I was doing media for, at the time, FLW and Walleye
right.
and all that. And some of those, renting the cabins, and that was as much fun as anything. But you guys, legitimately, made a living doing that per se. I mean, it wasn't your living, but there was guys that were doing about the same, and that was their job. And I just think about some of the guys like Dean and Keenan, and just some of the stories, that's that camaraderie, that lifestyle. It's like even that, like to your point of your doctor and your lawyer and all that, when I was doing my tax prep with my accountant, he looked at me, he's looking through all stuff, and he's like, "Do you do anything besides fish?" He's looking through and all. Well, where is this receipt? Why were you over in? Oh, that was the Bassmasters Classic. Well, what did you do in Orlando? Why is this a write-off? Oh, that's ICAST trade show. Where were you? Yeah. Because it is literally like my true lifestyle. You hear these companies like Sims and Costa Del Mar, they're like, oh, it's all about a lifestyle brand. I mean, truly, you don't do much besides, you hunt some, right? But
very.
Yeah, I mean, you've done probably a lot less than even when I met you. But I mean, fishing is your deal. Like, I mean, you're not going bowling on Tuesday nights, right?
No. In the winter time, I ride snowmobiles a little bit, but in the evenings when I get home from work, my therapy is working on gear. You're constantly organizing, working on gear, looking at what's new, looking at the next season, where you're going to be going, what you're going to be doing, So that's been
time spinners.
Yeah, time spinners for sure. Spinners was always my thing. I love to pull spinners. And that's where I made most of my money, was pulling spinners. But I did win Erie on crankbaits, and I'm horrible at crankbaits, as you know. It is not my thing. But
obviously, Dean must have put you on it.
Yeah, somebody did. He or Keenan would probably say that he did. Because
there's no doubt. But in fairness, even with that said, I know when we were talking about that not that long ago, and you brought that up, because I didn't not remember that, but if I'm not mistaken on that, you caught your last couple fish when things slow down on spinners.
I did. What I did was, it was the most unbelievable day ever anybody could have. It was incredible. So I was the first one there. I had a Verado powered Ranger at the time, and we ran to Avon from obviously Catawba. So I ran down there, and I was the first one there, and it was the day after the blow day. And I got set up, and we were pulling reef runners 75 and 95 back. So I told my co-angler, put the outside at 75, put the inside at 95. So we get started. He's got 2 rods out. I've got 1 out. I'm setting my second one out. He gets a fish on right away. He brings it in. He's like, oh, man, I made a mistake. It was at 95. I said, put it back out at 95 again. Long story short, I caught 18 fish that day. And when I had my best 5 towards the end, I had 4 30s and a 28.5 were the lengths of these fish. Just unreal. I was throwing back 28s kind of all day, probably threw back 4 or 5 of them. But I had a 29 in the box. I got a 28.5. I balance beamed it. The 28 was bigger. I threw it in. So I said to my co-angler, I said, man, we have an incredible bag. I said, I want to drop off the edge of this shelf, put spinners down, come up the shelf, like the way I fished my whole life by kind of, crashing. And we got set up.
There's some irony in that, but I'm going to let it go.
Right. We got set up and came up the hill. I got a double. And one of them was a 28.5 and the other one was a 30.25. So we netted them both, got them in. I threw the 28.5 back. I got the 28.5 out of the live well. Obviously balance beamed it with the 30 that I had just caught on the spinners. So I had 5 fish. My smallest was 30.25. My biggest was 30.75. So they were just all literally identical. And when I went in, obviously, I went in early. I got in at 2:00. And Mark, who worked at the FLW at the time, said, John, did you have a good day? I said, yeah, really good day. And he said, you got another hour. I said, yeah, I don't think I can do much better than I did. He's like, really? He's like, you can call here. I said, yep, I know. I'm good. So I pulled the boat out and we drove into Port Clinton. I think I was the 3rd one to weigh in, and they put all my fish on the thing and it wouldn't register. So Chip had me separate them. I put 2 in one bag, 3 in the other, and I had 20 pounds and change in one and 30 pounds and change in the other. So I had 51.7, and then prayed all night for the weather the next day, got the blow day. So I got the green vest. Since I didn't win, I don't get the sleeves.
Yeah. You cheated. You got the 1-day deal.
Yeah. I always tell my buddies, I'm so good, I can win in 1 day. It doesn't take me 2.
Well, speaking of that, I wrote down a few things, and I want you to add a couple because you're good humor. Biggest fails of John Gillman, because I remember running out of gas, actually. Let's just go with that one for starters. I mean, I was witness to many of these, so if you're not going to partake, I'll just throw them out there anyhow.
Yeah, you could do it. Yeah, I was at the championship at Green Bay, and oh my God, I couldn't catch a cold. I ran all over the earth to get a bite. And we've all done it. Everybody's done it. So I'm a mile and a half from Marinette, and I run out of gas. And luckily I called a guy and he towed me in. But in that event, I double zeroed, which is insane. To double, I actually had a fish on day 2, but obviously I couldn't weigh it because I ran out of gas. And then I've had some other issues before where, you're driving along and you put your rods in the rod holders. And so whenever I put my rods in my rod holders, I don't lock them in there. I just put them in there. And I was running along. We get to the spot. I turn around with my co-angler, and there's only 2 rods. 2 of them flew out. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And obviously we're prepared. So I get 2 more out of the, rod locker. So that was a quick $300, $400, $500 that I threw away. But yeah, I've had some.
In tournament fishing, you should be used to pouring it out, right? It's just like pouring water out of a bucket.
Yeah.
Well, Green Bay, I mean, I got to be honest, I've had enough of these myself, but today's about you, John. So Green Bay, I remember somebody calling me afterwards going, hey, ask John if he needs a motor toter.
Yeah, so it was an MWC event, and I was practicing and pulled the boat out, got it on the trailer, didn't think much of it, latched the front down. And a lot of times, you don't put the straps on the back. You just latch the.
Let's be honest. You made me look still. Your excitable boy was, I think Dave Scrappa was Walleye Insider at the time, called you excitable boy. Like you're just 100 miles an hour.
Yep, for sure. So I had to drive from Sturgeon Bay area to Appleton where I stayed. I stayed at Dean's house, never trimmed the motor up, flattened the skeg down to nothing. Totally forgot.
So people that are thinking about this, that's probably 3 inches of metal that was just worn right off.
Yeah, it was funny.
You had to have sparks flying up.
Well, it's cast, so it just sands right off like sandpaper. I did have a guy kind of pointing, and he was pointing back. I'm thinking, gosh, and I looked back, everything looked okay, and I just gave him the okay and kept going. And then I got to Dean's and realized when I tried to back up and I couldn't because the motor was down, that I had shaved it right flat.
Oh,
so that was not a good day.
And that's one of those things, you listen to somebody telling the story and you're like, what an idiot. How could you do that? But it's so easy to do it. I launch my boat, a couple hundred times a year. Yeah. And I still every now and then, because if somebody's talking to me or something, you've got these set of procedures. And if somebody kind of throws a wrench in and you're like me and you, or you're go, 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 go. And it's actually easier to happen than people would think.
Yeah, that's the only time that's happened to me. But the other one with Rangers, as you know, if you don't take that back strap off and you back it in and the front slides off, you're in trouble. And I've done that a couple times where I had to take off all my clothes and go swimming and cut that strap off on the back so that I would be able to, get the boat off the trailer. So, and we've all done that too.
So, like stories, I mean, it sounds kind of mean to keep bringing up all this stuff, but I mean, people love misery, John. And
yeah, they do. They love drama, and you're good at bringing it up.
One of my favorite things, I'll put a picture up on Facebook or something, and you'll text me like all I expect my buddies to do, be like, oh, great, you caught another 10-pounder. It's Lake Erie, a monkey catching, you ding dong. Yeah, no, jackass, just wait. Oh, did you catch a limit today? Oh, great, it's Erie. And me and you are always joking around about that. But do you remember where, I mean, this is almost cruel to even do it, but Dean Arnoldson has one of my favorite lines of all time. Do you remember it? I'll let you tell the punchline. When you had 2 fish one day? Do you remember?
Yeah, I vaguely remember. Yeah.
So Dean walks up to you. You just had a demoralizing day. You caught
Oh.
two fish.
That was the 14 season, and I had won 13. So I win in 2013. My co-angler thinks he's got a rock star, and I catch 2.
But the funniest part, if you guys can kind of visualize this at home, his good buddy, one of his best buddies, Dean Erlson, and one of the all-time leading money winners, walks up, leans on the edge of his boat and says, "Oh, you got 2 walleyes today, John, huh?" Instead of, "Hey, buddy, you'll get them again," he goes, "Hey, I noticed you got 2 nets. Did you put one in each one?"
He did do that. Oh, that was one of my fails. Like, everyone's coming in with 40 pounds, and I had won the year previous with 50 pounds, and I caught 2. And obviously, I bust your chops and your ass all the time about not being able to not catch a limit on Erie. Anyone can catch a limit on Erie. Monkeys can, and I catch 2. So, yeah, that was not good.
Yeah.
I ate some crow on that. That's karma.
Yeah. Snowflakes need not apply to this click. You're going to get roasted. No one is exempt from the beatings. No one is exempt.
Right on.
I mean, there's been so many, and I think that the people, when we said about Hero to Zero, just like that year, I can remember because I actually was down there pre-fishing with you because we were doing some stuff for Ranger Boats at the time and for the FLW magazine, if you remember. And we were down in Cleveland.
Yes, correct.
And kind of had things going on, but it was like one of those deals. The junkfish were biting, that water was super warm, and you're going through if people can picture this, if you've ever fished spinners, you'll understand this, and you'll just crawl in a corner. A flat of crawlers or more a day. And probably the only reason not more is because you just physically couldn't put them on much faster.
Yeah. It was exhausting is what I'll say. Exhausting to go through that many crawlers, and you're just working and working and working. But that was the confidence that I had.
Well, that was the championship too, wasn't it?
No, I think it was.
It was Cleveland. It was Cleveland in the championship, but I mean,
yes, that's correct.
Because I remember, because I think I drove a camera boat one day doing the media stuff, and I mean, Bone ended up winning that one, didn't he?
Yeah, that was the PWT. He ended up winning, and I was 50 yards from him all 3 days, and it was just.
And it was PWT.
Crushing, because he was whacking them. So of course you're watching him. I'm watching him reel, counting how many times he whines. You're doing all the games you do, trying to figure out what in the heck he's doing differently. And he was pulling snap weights. I was pulling snap weights. He was pulling 4-ounce snap weights, and I was pulling 2-ounce snap weights. Must have made the difference, because we literally, my God, we were on the same fish. And yeah, he ended up winning the event. Good for him. I didn't. But that'll tell you, the smallest of things can make a huge difference.
Did your co-angler point over and be like, "How come we're not catching him like him?"
No, but I got a great story. So the championship in 2017 was in Green Bay, and Dean won that event. And this is a educational thing, I guess. And as a tournament fisherman, you're always checking your gear and making sure your shit is in order and whatever. And so we go out on day 1, and we're fishing off Chambers Island, and we're snap weighting flicker minnows, starting in 80 feet of water, coming up to 20. So we get out there right after Dean, and we both set up, and we might be 100 yards apart. And I've never had a bad co-angler. They've always been awesome. Some non-fishermen, but always great guys. So we get started, and I look over, and Dean's netting. And I'm thinking, damn, he's got one on already. Good, the fish are here. They didn't move because we had some weather days and things like that. So then we keep going. He gets another one. We keep going. He gets another one. So my co-angler says to me, he's all, "Do you think he changed his program up?" I'm like, "No, we've been here 45 minutes. He wouldn't have changed what we were doing in practice." Come to find out, I ended up with 31 pounds that day. Dean had 38 or something. He was in 4th or something like that. Long story short, we get the next 2 days canceled. Dean and I figured our fish would hold really good on Chambers. Tommy Kimos and Okada and the boys that were going up north whacking giants, casting. We were hoping and figured the water would flip and get cold on them, and it did. And they didn't get them. And Dean did get them again. And I got them pretty good on the 4th day as well, which would have been the 2nd day. And what happened was the next the morning of day 4, which was the last day, we're in the harbor. And I said to Dean, I said, I am not going to get schooled by you. And I always have a game day box. You know what that is. I've got these. This is what I'm going to use on game day. So I had my game day box out, and he's like, are your baits tuned? I'm like, yeah, they're flicker minnows. I've never had a real issue with them. Well, I throw a couple on and I drag them, in the harbor. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They just blow right out. Well, that's what happened to me on day 1. My baits just weren't tuned, and I was 100 miles an hour, like I am, not paying attention. And so then day 2, I went out, my baits were tuned, and I had a much better day. Again, the smallest of thing made a huge difference.
Even a guy that's been doing it forever, it only takes 1 minute. Those crankbaits don't know who's holding them. I always tell them, like, hey, those walleyes don't know it's Al Linder above them. They got nothing. You've got to do everything right every single day.
Yeah, and that was a huge learning curve. And Dean kind of laughed. He's like, you dumbass, you got to tune your crankbaits. You know that. And I said, yeah, you're right. I said, I just, I'm always spun out. You're making sure you've got everything ready to go. And we were pulling some spinners and some weeds too. So I'd have 6 rods in the boat ready for cranking and 6 rods in the boat set up with spinners. And, so you can adjust and adapt quick, because time is money. Time is your enemy when you're out there. And if you're going to switch from cranks to spinners, you want to pull them out of the locker, throw those in and adjust and go. So, I mean,
it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny that you suck at crankbaits, but you're good at spinners, because spinners are so much more difficult. Crankbaits are kind of like,
they are, but snap, but people are snap weighting them now, and some of not that they didn't forever, but those, do you really know your lengths and leads and what they're actually doing? Bandits, husky jerks, flicker minnows, shad rats, the new spro baits, all those different baits, where do they exactly run? Obviously you got the trolling Bible and everybody has the app on their phone now, which again, that technology is awesome, but spinners, I'm just so comfortable. I know exactly what they're doing. I just used them so much here at home and applied that same knowledge everywhere else. And I've learned a lot about trolling in the weeds too, and pulling spinners in the weeds and doing that. And that's important, because the fish are always in the weeds.
Do you think though, tournament fishing, I've kind of gone a different direction in my career, just, after like literally the Linders and just understanding that there's other ways, but tournaments still play a role. I think there's very few guys, I know there's very few that make a living fishing walleye tournaments. They just don't have enough exposure. We could go into a whole Pandora's box with that rabbit hole in itself, but tournaments are good in that they, like you said, the casting thing, they open up the industry to another way of doing things. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously it helps the industry. Obviously I'm a business person too, and business is important. And watching Shiver Minnow and the Moonshine Lure Company explode, jigging wraps, and, all those baits, all that education that you get using that as a tournament angler. I went to South Dakota, I don't remember, 7 to 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And I had, I'm been a shad wrap guy forever. That, and I get to South Dakota and like, oh man, you got to have flicker shads. I'm like, I don't have to have flicker shads. I'll just pull shad wraps. Same.
How'd that work out?
It worked out good. I caught zip. So then, of course, you go to the local tackle store and you buy 1 million flicker shad, because it makes a difference. The different rattles, the different densities of the plastic, and all those different things mean a lot. And being on point all the time is tough. It's tough, but it does make you a far better fisherman. When I take my wife and nieces and nephews here at home, they expect to catch fish because, I'm going with Uncle John. He can catch fish. It's like, well, not always.
Wait till they go with Uncle Ross, then they'll be really excited.
Right, on Erie, where monkeys can catch them.
Here we go. I was waiting for that to come, but yeah, I get it.
But it's it's one of those things where you become so much better and so much sharper. And I think, I'm 54 now, getting old. Dean, all the guys are getting older or whatever, and you can't fish 15 hours a day anymore. You get tired. And these young kids, man, with the technology they have, and it's crazy. The social media out there, the websites, the information you can get. When I went to Escanaba in 2002, there's no, the fishing report was the bait shop. The learning curve now is so much shorter, but you better be on point to be competitive.
I hate to admit it. Again, anybody that looks at my tackle, and a lot of my clients will say like, "Oh my God, this guy's wired tight," which probably ain't far off of the truth. But being OCD as a fisherman, like Aaron Martin's is this way. If you watch his stuff,
Yeah.
at times, and again, maybe that's why Aaron Martin's is also a bridesmaid. Happy to be in second, but that little bit difference. I think a lot of times OCD makes me do well. Like we both know a mutual guy who he can't find his spinners below out of his boat. His live wells is his tackle box. You know, we won't throw you out of the bus, but we're both on the same page. And you just go, how does that guy catch him too?
Yeah.
Where do you think sometimes that OCD, because I have an opinion on this, hurts your fishing a lot?
Oh, absolutely. Because you've got to have everything so right, and you might be overthinking. But then I also think on the other side, a lot of times it helps me time-wise. I'm more efficient. I fished with Corey Springle's dad in the National Walleye Tour here in Bay City a couple years ago. And we took off, and I fished in Standish. And we can run 4 lines, obviously, and I had a 5th one on the deck. We were pulling small flicker minnows in 14 feet of water, 20 back behind boards. And we'd get a fish on, I'd get the board off, I'd net the fish, drop it on the floor, grab that rod on the bow, and I'm running it out. And he said to me, he's like, "Oh my God, John, I've never seen a guy so efficient as you are." I said, "Yeah, time is money, man, and efficiency is everything." You know, you watch, and it's funny because I watch the shows on TV and the guy nets the fish and they're high-five and they're all excited. And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, get another rod out. Why are you talking about the fish? Get another one going. Time is money. Get another, you know."
So let's get in. Let's kind of wrap with the business end of things for you and the fishing thing. But before I go there, I'm going to kind of say, do you ever think to yourself? I know fishing's your passion, but do you ever think to yourself, if I just would have stuck to my regular business, I would be retired by now, and not having to talk with Ross?
Yeah, but I wouldn't have any fun. I wouldn't have the acquaintance with you that I have. Oh, of course. I mean, yes and no. Business has evolved a lot. We are a big decorator. So we are a volume decorator where we screen print and embroider and do things like that. So I get into fishing, tournament fishing, because it's my passion. Fishing's my passion. Then we all of a sudden start to do some work in the fishing industry. And then about 5-6 years ago, I got into e-commerce where we were building websites and doing fulfillment. So, for example, now my company does all of the Johnson Outdoors apparel, Minn Kota, Humminbird, Cannon, Talon, Raptor. We pick the garments, get it approved through the marketing department. We build the websites, we build the promotions, we do all that. Yeah, the sweet sweatshirt you're wearing, we did that. Yeah, Fish USA, another great customer of mine. And then Skeeter Boats. I've been doing Skeeter Boats for about 4 years now, and I'm extremely passionate about the fishing industry. And so that's been a great thing. During this tough year, 2020, our e-commerce sales with fishing apparel was really, really good. And that helps, it keeps your confidence up in business and whatnot, because event business was gone. We're not printing road race shirts. We're not printing Traverse City Cherry Festival clothing. Our corporate business has been good. We do a lot of work for different corporations. And then our fishing business has been wonderful. And again, I'm extremely fortunate for that. And we're going to do more of it in the future, more e-commerce, because the business world's changing all the time. Even brick and mortar stores, at tackle shops, Fish USA, places like that, they're changing and evolving too. And, more online, and how to market to those anglers and whatnot is huge.
Well, I can remember you used to joke back in the early days when I got to know you that you were wasting too much time on the fishing stuff because you had other companies like General Motors and all these major companies, and they're obviously it's just like bass to walleyes. There's just sheer bigger numbers there. It is what it is. But you suck it out.
Could it be different? Yeah. Could I gone after more automotive? But it wouldn't have been any fun either. The fishing industry. I get to talk. I talk to you. I talk to Dean. And a ton of my fishing acquaintances throughout the years, I do work for their businesses. So, and that's fun because I can bullshit with them about tournaments or fishing or whatever's going on in the industry, the new products coming out and who's building a new boat, what's going on, all that stuff is.
Even your business, from the time I've known you, it's done kind of a 180 because fishing is so much more of a portion of it. But even
Yeah.
like the anglers themselves, like you're doing, I mean, you do shirts for me, obviously, from a business standpoint. But then
Yeah.
also, I mean, I don't know if you want to say or not, but like some of the anglers that you're doing stuff for their brand and they're growing their own clothing situation.
Yeah, we do Brandon Polinick, and obviously this is, probably more of a walleye podcast than it is a bass thing. But Brandon, I met through some people. He's a Skeeter guy. He's a Johnson Outdoors guy. So that's, a good plus for us. And then he kind of developed his own BMP fishing line of clothing, and he keeps doing better and better with it. He's got a very big following, and that's been fun. And then I get to bust his chops all the time about how easy bass are to catch versus walleyes because they're so dumb. And they eat rubber.
Beat a bank. I mean, we don't need 360. Just go run down a bank or something. Like
throw it under the dock and bring it out.
Brown carp, green carp. It's all the same.
Yeah, right.
So why don't you give me one good one to kind of leave me with that, a little insight, a tip, or maybe a road story. Something we'd like to leave on a high note. And I would love to talk about you dragging a skag through Green Bay again, but. I mean, something else. Give somebody to think of John Gillman. Obviously, you're already failing. It shows how dumb you are right now. I mean, when I do this with like a real pro or something, they'd fire one right off. I mean, but that's cool.
Yeah. Well, probably the highlight for me, growing up, fishing junkie, getting up on Saturday mornings to watch fishing shows, the Fishing Hole, Jerry McGinnis and all that. And then in Fisherman became huge, a big part of my life as a kid. And it was probably 2009, 8, 9, something like that.
I know where you're going with this one. I like it.
Yeah, and we went to Tom Keenan, and Dean and I kind of got a little bit of a fix for bass. We would go to northern Minnesota frog fishing during the day, Leech and some of those lakes there, and then we would muskie fish at night. And we'd go for a long weekend. Well, Tom had to do a Chevy commercial because he was sponsored by Chevy then. He had the Chevy truck wrap and the Chevy boat wrap. And so we went up to Leech to film a commercial. And Mike Keener, Mike well, obviously.
Yep.
He did all the filming and, back the boat in and out and all the stuff you do for these TV commercials and whatnot. And Tom was the star. He'll tell you that too. And so we got done, and Tom's like, hey, why don't you call Al and see if he'll take John and I bass fishing? And so Mike Keener says, yeah, I'll call him. And we kind of thought he was joking. He's like, yeah, drive up to Brainerd. You can go. And Tom's like, serious? He's like, yeah, swear to God, he'll take you. So Tom and I drove up to Brainerd to Lindner Media, got to go in, see the facility, met Al, obviously there, threw our gear in his Suburban, hooked up to his Lund Tiller boat, and went on some lake somewhere. And it was a blast. I mean, we just smashed them. And Al was just incredible. He was a gentleman. And what was funny is I said to Tom when we left, I said, I thought it was going to be more of a token trip. Like, yeah, those guys, I'll take them for an hour or two. My God, he didn't want to quit. But Tom and I wanted to get back to Mille Lacs that night to muskie fish at night. And Al was like, he was gung-ho to keep going and going and going. And it was a blast. It was really cool.
Do you remember, because Tom's his head's gonna just hit the school bus 14 times on this one. Do you remember that Tom went in and threw up and one blew up on his frog? I remember Tom telling this story like, what the hell? You know where I'm going with this? Yeah. And what people have to understand, home, is like Al Lindner. I mean, to me, he's the man in the fishing industry, right?
He is.
But then you've got Tom, who obviously is one of the top all-time money winners, and they're both 1,000 miles an hour. Like, there's no surprise they're at where they're at. If people can picture this, Tom throws in there, misses when it blows up. Now, these are guys like it's not supposed to matter, right? Nope.
Right.
So Al and Tom and Al are both about up to my waist. I mean, you guys are all short compared to me, right? He like pushes between you guys, throws over his head, goes and catches that one, and Tom is like, dude, Al, what are you doing stealing my thunder, man? How many more fish did you need to catch?
And it was hilarious because Al he was just as competitive and wanted to catch that fish as bad as we did.
And I think when you see guys like a Roland Martin or an Al Linder or that, and you just wonder like, hey, was that guy just at the right place at the right time? Those guys legitimately 40, 50 years into a career are as excited as I was when I first started. Yeah. And that is what really, to me, truly separates them and makes them icons and just, I mean, freaks. They're unicorns.
Yeah, for sure. And, that's what draws people like you and I and Tom and Al Linder together, because we're all sick. We have the sickness, and I see all these guys at tournament fish and, travel around and you just know they're the same creature as you are. They just love to fish.
Yeah, you did pretty good for kind of sucking with technology and being kind of boring.
You're not nice, are you?
No, in this group, just so you know, a good defense is a better offense. Well, I want to thank you for giving us your time. I mean, we might even do this again. I doubt it. We might.
Yeah, I can do it again. I got some other good stories.
Yeah, I mean, I always used to remember. I'd always call you and I'd say, "Hey, the only reason I talk to you is to get some free cotton T-shirts." And then
it's the only reason you call me is for free clothing.
Yeah,
you
free
and all
T-shirts.
the rest of my.
Yeah, and now you remember when I said like, I've got enough cotton. Now I need performance shirts. Any performance shirts I can have?
Yeah, tech fabric. That's what you wanted.
Yeah. I'm just happy that you're doing so much Sims stuff now, because I mean that's just nice stuff. You got nice little logos on there.
Yeah, we do a ton for AFCO. We do a lot of Sims for the different brands, and it's cool. It's really, really cool to be in the industry. I go to ICAST every year like you. I go to the Bassmaster Classic every year because we actually are the vendors that set up for Johnson Outdoors there with the apparel and the Skeeter booth. And then a ton of customers are in that building. We do missile baits and Gamakatsu and Spro and Sunline and Big Bite and Denali rods. And I can go on and on and on with some of the customers that we've gathered through fishing. And they're all great people. They're just fishermen like we are. And that's what's fun about working with them. Yeah, I could brush my desk off, get into strictly the automotive world, and probably be a lot better off maybe. I don't know, financially, but it wouldn't be any fun. I wouldn't be able to bullshit with people like you. And
that's almost a compliment. That's almost.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not. Don't take it that. No. Don't take it that way. It's not.
Well, I do, in all seriousness, want to thank you for giving the time, because me and you sitting down for an hour is difficult, let alone at the same time. So I appreciate that. And everybody out there, hopefully you enjoyed it. I want them to make sure you stop at bigwaterfishing.com. We're Bigwater Fishing on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all that other good stuff. Look us up. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear. Probably don't want to hear John again, but we're going to have him on. You're just like, you're getting so old, you're almost like the token gotta have you on guy. But then we'll have like Keenan on if we want to hear about like good fishing stuff too.
No, Keenan will tell you that I'm great and you suck 100 times. That's what he'll do.
I love it. It makes for great radio, great TV and podcasting,
Yeah, he would be the best.
Well, thank you again for your time. And we'll definitely have to do her again. And, it has been a while since we've actually fished in the same boat.
Yeah, too long. You need to go with me so I can teach you some things.
No, I was just thinking another 5 years wouldn't hurt you. Thanks again. Stop by bigwaterfishing.com and all those things that we got going. New content coming every day.